following presentation was recorded live for the International Association of Square Dance Callers 21st Annual Convention. This is tape number 11, Timing and Phrasing in Class.
We're trying to look after two sessions here. My son does the next one. And he had a few things to do, so I was a little bit hurried up here. This is the timing session, timing, phrasing, music, so forth. They all tie together. And we have two gentlemen here. John Kay, we know him as John Kaltenthaler. Everybody calls him John Kay. Past General Secretary of our Executive Secretary of CALLERLAB. A caller coach in his own right. And a very capable caller. Comes from Pocono Pines in Pennsylvania. Has his good wife Freddie here to coach him. And we're looking forward to hearing from John on the process of timing as it affects the teaching program. And Larry Davenport, and he is from Foster City. He just moved recently. He's a transplant. I believe that John and Larry worked together at one time around the Pocono Pines area, so they have been a large influence on each other. You're going to hear their... No influence here, though. So we're going to hear from both of these fellows on their points of view of timing and so forth as it affects our programs. I have a few words to say, and then I'm going to turn them loose. There's several things that affect your timing when you're calling. First of all, the length of time it takes you to present a call. And depending on the length of that call affects the timing of that call. If you say right and left through, it takes you more time to say spin, chain, and exchange the gears than it does to say right and left through. That's one of the things that they will be talking about. And I'm just going to give you the rough outline and let them go on about it. The lead time. How long does it take the dancer to react when you, as a caller, give that command? And sometimes that lead time is affected by many things. Sometimes the age of the dancer, the state of the floor. What is the sound in the hall? There are many factors which, again, will be discussed. The time it takes the dancer to do the movement. And all this has to relate to the music. And I'm sure most of you sitting here, yeah, I've heard that before. But there's a lot of skill involved in doing that. And we're going to have demonstration square to show you what that skill is involved. Each of these factors are affected by the tempo of the music, the ability of the dancer to hear the beat. Poor sound can hinder it. Poor hearing can hinder it. Poor mouthing of the commands can hinder it. There's many things that can hinder that timing of the call. Sometimes the type of music you use will hinder it. Will change how it sounds to the dancer, and they will have problems with that. The rhythm affects it. In other words, is it a 4-4, 2-4, 6-8, or sometimes 2-2 rhythm? So that rhythm will affect how the dancer reacts to the music. And they will discuss the different types and so forth of that. And I will be cutting in from time to time, but only if they make a mistake. And I don't think they will. We hear a lot of things about other deals. Your late delivery of the call can affect how the dancer reacts. Early delivery of the call will affect how he reacts. Clipped timing. And I think that is one of the things that we as callers are very often guilty of. We do not allow the dancers enough time to execute the call before the next call comes along. And that's what we term as clip timing. Heads do a right and left through and then square through with the outside two, do a right and left through and veer to the left. And the dancer goes, what's going on here? That's extreme, though. Sometimes we call unfamiliar material without giving the dancers a chance. If they don't know the material or they've only seen it once or twice, their reaction time is going to be very poor. So we have to be aware with the group that we're calling to what is their ability. If you don't know what their ability is, be careful till you find out. What hand is available? Are you seeing square through 4 hands, left allemande? How many have ever done that? Never. I don't know. We have a saying in our sheep line. Body flow. Is it comfortable? Did you call something that didn't flow well, like centers in and bend the line? That's the worst one I can think of right at the moment. Or example of good timing would be centers in cast off 3/4. Overflow. When you call something, it causes the dancer to swing through, fan the top. Here's a good example of making somebody screw themselves into the ground. And we do it to ourselves, of course, if we call that one. It's the boys that are getting done into the ground. Usually we do it to the girls. One thing both callers and dancers are creatures of habit. When we call something a lot, the dancers expect it. One experience that I personally have had, I called a swing through, and I sneezed, and I was away up in the northern part of... Yeah. No, about 2/3 of the floor did a spin the top and a right and left through. So I knew what the caller in their area was calling as a habit. And from there on, we built the dance. It's a nice way to find out is fake a sneeze and see what they do. Scoot back, and the boys will run. So keep that in mind. Which one of you gentlemen is going to go first? You would like to go first? You were elected. You mean you tossed a coin and you lost? Well, Larry, you're on. I hope I haven't taken anything you wanted to enlarge on, so I'll leave it to you. Larry Davenport.
Thanks, Martin.
You talk slowly for the next 4 or 5 minutes while these guys do these others.
No problem. We're going to cover quite a bit of different aspects of timing today, and we're going to get into some of the more technical aspects of it, and John will handle a great part of that. I want to draw back to starting off with the first you meet your new dancer and that new dancer meets you, and what's going to happen in the class setting. And follow a little bit along. This session is called Timing and Phrasing in Class, and timing and phrasing as it should be discussed in teaching new dancers. Because as you listen to a lot of what Martin is saying, these are all the skills and all the aspects. If you think of the command time and the execution time and the lead time and keeping all that in track and the time of the music, awful lot of that is from the point of view of the assumption that your dancer is on the floor and already knows what it is, and they know the moves and they can follow what you're saying. It's a little bit different kind of a situation when you start that class and you bring those new dancers in. And obviously, the first thing you're going to worry about is, do they know how to do a move, period, if they know what an Alaman left is and how to do that Alaman left before they know that it's going to be 6 or 8 or whatever number of beats it's going to take to execute it. So I want to talk a little bit about class, getting started, getting the dancers started, and how you take that on to worrying about, well, once you've taught them the first skills, what's the move? How do you get on to teaching them what some of the skills are of the of proper timing, so the dancers can enjoy that aspect of it. So while we're moving a lot of paper, yeah, that's what I was just going to say. So with that little bit of preamble, while we move some of that paper through, before we actually get into it, I'm going to give you a few minutes to get your papers and get settled.
You should never start anything until the paperwork is done.
Oh, absolutely. And now everybody's listening to all that nice dead silence, as we go through that point of it. No dead silence on tape. Anybody know hum a few bars of a song or something? Yeah. Okay, I think that we've gotten close enough there. So, okay, what happens when you bring that new dancer out on the floor and they haven't learned anything yet? Are you worried about timing at that point? No, not really. You're worried about how to teach them. You're going to do a lot of walkthrough that first time. You're not even going to be using music initially. Once you've got the dancers moving a little bit, you're still not going to be worrying about time. And I think maybe, do we have that square that's available that wanted to dance a little bit? And let's just play a little bit of, I want 8 dancers that can pretend they don't know anything.
We got one more couple quickly? Thank you.
Okay, what I'm going to use this square for and to demonstrate a little bit is Martin talked about some of the things that you don't want to do with timing. The slow stop and go type of timing, the fast stack calls kind of timing, as opposed to what's really smooth timing with good body flow. But what you're going to do when you're teaching in class and you've got a set of dancers that are ready to go, one of the things that's going to happen is if you after you've taught them the first move and you just go and give it exactly the number of beats you need and expect them to dance it, you're going to run into failure. And the reason you're going to run into failure is that they really don't know the move yet. So how can they really react with just the amount of execution time it takes to do the beat, do the call? First time through, that execution, instead of 10 from a head square through 4, if you would. And if we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's the 10 beats that it took to get there. But if this is the first time, let's see, just do a right and left through if you would. Pass to the center. Centers, do a right and left through. And star through, and is that where you started out? Back away. Okay, but let's pretend that you've never done a square through 4 before. And we're going to say to the heads, okay, step forward and right hand pull by and turn in to face the dancer next to you, left hand to the next hand, turn in, right hand to the next, turn in, left hand to finish and pull straight ahead. Obviously that took more than 10 beats of music if we're going to do that in the music. And how about the folks on the inside just do a U-turn back? Star through, California twirl. That was too easy. Besides, that's not. I only use calls that were on the list. Pretend for a minute that these are brand new dancers. They just learned to square through 4, and you want to give them enough time. Heads, square through, go 4. What's going to happen here is these folks, they obviously are cheating. They know how to do it. They're moving through it very easily, but they might not have gotten there in 10 beats. And so you may need to give that little bit extra time. You may need to sacrifice timing in the class situation. Do, fa, do. Maybe you need to wait a little bit. Maybe they weren't quite there. Do a right and left through. Veer to the left. But what you can see what's happening right there is they're coming to a stop every time. And if we were really dancing a tip and dancing a dance, it would be just a little bit uncomfortable doing in that way. You get tired as the evening goes along. But if you're teaching new dancers and you're thinking, well, gee, am I not giving them correct timing? Well, right now the sacrifice is to give them enough time so they can see where they're going. All right, just a little bit more here. Couple circulate. Then the line, forward and back. Now, one of the things that's happening there is you decide that you don't want them to just absolutely stand around at this point, but maybe you want to start to do something that makes it just a little bit smoother for them and a little bit closer to timing. You can start to throw in something like a forward and back. So if they're not quite there, you give them a chance to sort of catch up, and they can sort of get a little bit more sense of what the dancing is like. Now, you might be sacrificing. Somebody might be out there saying, but if you give them exactly 8 beats to do a forward and back, let's see what happens. Forward and back, if you would. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is what's allowed for it. They may be going forward and coming on back like this to catch up, but the fact of the matter is you gave them a dancing movement instead of just dead space so that they can start to get a little bit more familiar with what they're doing there. Once you go through this thing with the class and you're dealing with this, at some point you've got to keep in mind the fact that they get real used to class timing. All right? They get real used to that. Get there and stop and look around and see where they are. Get to the next spot and move, look around and stop them when they get there. And if that's all you ever do in a class situation and you take them right on through to the end of your teaching period and say, okay, now you've graduated, you're mainstream dancers, you're going to go out and do mainstream with the club, and they get out there and you got a caller that says, well, I know what timing is and I time these moves so they work, and these poor folks get out there, they're expecting to have all the time in the world to get to the next spot. So one of the things you have to do is you have to make a standard. I think actually I'm not going to use you again right now, so why don't you sit down. Nice hand for the dancers. So what you really have to do is, as you're going through the course of teaching your class, and you're going from just telling them how to do a move, teaching them how to do a move, starting to dance them through the move with the music and the repetition of the dance, you've got to at some point start picking in your evenings points of time where you're now going to move away from class timing, or most of the time class timing is going to be equivalent to a stop and go kind of a calling. You need to take that time and start early on in the class experience to start using proper timing, giving them the right amount of time to go to the next movement so that it starts to smooth out. Now, the other thing you have to keep in mind when you think about that, though, is that as you're going through class and there's a certain core of material that they've learned early, they're starting to get familiar with that. You've got the stuff that you're just now teaching, and that's just coming about a little bit. That's where they're shaky again. Remember, when you've got moves where the dancers are not real confident that they really know it yet, they're going to need more time. When you've got moves where the dancers have seen it often enough that they're starting to be pretty comfortable, that's where you can start to show them that they no longer need to have that, whatever you want to call it, slop time or extra time or whatnot. So you may pick after a few weeks of class, you may pick a tip and say, okay, this time we're going, explain to them what you're going to do, but you can say, we're going to cut out some of that time that I'm giving you to sort of find yourself. But for success, what you want to do is you want to go back and use the calls that they're most confident with at that point. You don't want to take the call they just learned tonight. If you're doing a plus class and you just did Relay the Deucey and you say, okay, now we're just going to hop right through it, that's not the time to do Relay the Deucey. Maybe you go back to things that are getting a little bit old in terms of what they've already learned, but they're getting real comfortable with it. And that's where you can start to bring them up to speed. And if you keep this process going throughout class such that by the end of class you're not giving them a lot of slop time, their transition to leave that class and move into a club setting where the timing is hopefully right on, and John's going to tell you all how to make that right on in a little bit, right? That's what we're talking about in terms of realize that there's a difference between the class situation and teaching and the club situation. Realize that there are some don'ts in timing, such as waiting too much time to give the next call so the dancers come to a halt, giving the calls too close together so that they're always rushing to catch up. I don't see any purpose to use too close together to rush to catch up in a class situation or any other. These guys can tell me whether that's got a purpose somewhere. But in the class, you're really dealing with the stop and go kind of timing, and you want to eliminate that as you go so that your dancers make that transition from class to club more easily. When you've then got them, I think at that point, John, maybe I'll come back with something a little bit later, but turn it over to you at this point.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Martin talked about the three aspects of timing: command time, lead time, execution time. Sometimes we wonder how we get started in that, and let me just drill a little bit about command time. Take whatever program you're calling, but for right now, let's just say the mainstream program. Pick up the list of calls. Practice the list of calls just on any particular hoedown record. And we're not thinking choreographically, we're thinking merely execution of giving the command. Heads, right and left through, 2 ladies chain, 4 ladies chain, heads square through, right and left through, pass through, trade by single hinge, scoot back, boys run, right and left through. You don't care whether the choreography works or not, you're getting used to giving the command in a delivery style that lets you give the 2-beat commands. Most commands that we have in square dancing can be given in 2 beats. Why do callers use dive through instead of pass to the center? Lack of discipline. They haven't trained themselves to say pass to the center in 2 beats. If we were to discipline ourselves to give the commands properly in 2 beats, what's the reaction if you say pass through, wheel, and deal? You wheel and you see them start to say, where's the next command? I want to put that foot down, but you haven't given the command. It's wheel and deal. Or you do a right and left through, and you take too long to give it. Can all commands be given in 2 beats? No way. If you're calling the Plus program, I don't know of anybody who can spin, change, and change the gears in 2 beats. Not only does it hurt the mouth sometimes to move it that fast, but the ears don't receive it that fast. And you do have to say spin, chain, which are the key words, and exchange the gears. You can do that for emphasis while they've started to do the spin, chain, and exchange the gears. That's all command time. Lead time says, as Martin and Larry pointed out, is the amount of time before you're expecting the dancer reaction to take place. The translation time from the ears down to the feet. And that lead time is perhaps the largest variable in class timing. Command time shouldn't change. Execution time shouldn't change if we've taught it correctly. But the lead time is where the variable comes in. That's the hard part, because we're dealing with fractions of a second. If we take a typical hoedown record and we play it somewhere in the 124 to 128 range, for those of you younger ones, perhaps 130. But if you're going anything over 130 in today's environment, I submit that you're calling too fast. I've got to tell you a story that happened in Australia when CALLERLAB went over there for the mini lab. We put the tempo on and we tried to tell the callers, slow down. And the square dance callers in Australia say, our dancers won't let us slow down. They insist that we call that fast. The staff of John Jones, Ernie Kinney, Jim Mayo, Jack Lasry, and me, all of us were over there as the staff, and we called our dance, and our tempo was in the 126, 128 category. The dancers all said, oh, we love your tempo. Can't you get our callers to slow down? Now, callers are telling us the dancers won't let us. Dancers are saying, boy, that's fun to be able to dance to the music. By the way, we have a new test for callers in timing. What you have to do is you ask me 2 questions, Don. First, what do I do for a living? Second, what's the hardest thing in my job? Okay? I'm a square dance caller. Timing. You're a little slow on the uptake on that one. We'll let you try it, Rich. Same 2 questions. I'm a square dance caller. Timing. So a couple of different ways of looking at it, okay? But timing is perhaps the hardest single thing that we do in square dance calling today. Can I get my square back up here, please? Can I get the 8 people who were up here before that danced for Larry so well?
This time you know how to dance.
Yes. Now, I'm going to call some things that they will be able to do. Some will be called correctly as far as timing. Some will be rushed. Some will be stop and go. And if I suspect I know these dancers, they will adjust their speed based on my calling. I want you to dance the same way regardless of how I call. And if you don't have time to do it, just do it with the music and we'll see what happens. I would rather you dance to me, but we'll just see what happens. Here we go. Head ladies chain. Same ladies chain back. Side ladies chain. Who gets the first beat of the musical phrase? Chain back. Heads square through. Swing through. Boys run right. Ferris wheel. Then pass through Alum and left. Should be home. Now, was the timing correct? Who got the first beat of the musical phrase? The dancers. What do most callers do? I'm greedy, man. I'm taking that first beat for me. Does it dance the same? You tell me if they dance the same. head ladies chain, side ladies chain, and the head 2 ladies chain, side 2 ladies chain, and the heads square through get 4. I don't care about the music. They're moving, right? Swing through. Boys, run right. You Ferris wheel. Then pass to Alabama left for the corner. Which is easier for them to dance? Proper timing is easier. Which felt better for you guys? It better be the first one. Say the first one. Okay. What happens if I clip my timing, and as Martin pointed out, I don't give them enough time to do it? Dancers will tend to try to catch up to the caller. Okay? We are guilty of that, most of us. Let's see what happens. Side, square through. Swing through with the outside 2. Spin your top. See, I'm feeling the music. Right or left through. Star through. Pass to the center. Square through. You better get 3. You guys are good. Now, what? Did you notice none of them ever, they didn't do the Alaman because they didn't call it. Sides unpair off, if you would, please. Now, don't anybody write the office and tell them I showed you how to do an unpair off. I don't want to hear it. But it is a useful teaching tool, however. Now, when we do this thing, you saw them try to start to rush a little bit, didn't they? And it got a little bit ragged. If I show the stop and go timing, they'll have to physically wait in between, and they'll start to slow down before I get there because they haven't heard the command with the proper lead time. Let's see if we can show you that. Head square through. Right or left through. Veer left. Ferris wheel. In the middle now. Square through. You count to 3. When you get there now, here's what we'll do. Alaman left with the corners too. Has that ever happened to any of you out there? You've heard other callers do that, right? Why don't we do this? Let's have the heads do a right and a left through, and I think they'll be back home now. So the point being that the differences in timing correctly and the differences in stop and go and the differences in clip timing may be just a fraction of a second. Even if you're only off a half a second. That's how many beats of music if we're calling it 120. How many beats of music? 1 beat of music. And if we're off less than half a second, we're talking with fractions of beats of music, aren't we? That's why timing is so hard to do. There is another aspect of timing, and it goes with smooth dancing. Part of that is how do you teach? If I'm teaching a lady's chain, I want to tell them it takes 4 beats to cross and 4 beats to courtesy turn, correct? Say yes. Thank you. If I'm teaching that so that I want to get the dancers to feel the smoothness, I can do that by saying head ladies chain and the heads promenade, and they get that idea of rolling into that promenade down the middle with the right and left through and the same ladies chain back. Nice body flow goes with it, doesn't it? What happens if they do this figure, which was taken out of the center section of a national square dance publication? Heads square through. It'll be tough on the sides for you, I'll tell you ahead of time. Swing through. Boys run right, and the couples circulate. Ferris wheel, sweep 1/4 more. This other star through. Zoom, square through, you better get 3. Do sadu, make a little wave and swing through. Boys run right, couples circulate tonight. Now the couples trade, and the couples circulate, and the couples trade, and the couples circulate. Ferris wheel, in the middle, sweep 1/4, and a right and left through. Everybody circle to the right. Should be home. Now, what did I do? Martin talked about it. What was the term? Overflow. You must be prepared. You must be prepared, however, for a dancer to say, "You have screwed me into the floor. Would you please unscrew me?" And that sometimes creates a problem for you, but the dancers know when you're running them into the ground. Let's look at a figure which is very common in some singing calls. Heads, if you would, just for sake of discussion, pair off, please. Swing through. Watch the heads now. Boys run. Couples circulate. Ferris wheel. Okay, I didn't want to do that. Sweep a quarter. Yeah, on Ferris wheel. and the others star through and pass through. I'll get them through the corner. They are facing their corner. No, they're not easy. Swing through, turn through, and Alaman left, and come back and promenade or unpromenade if you like. I don't really care. What? Now, the point is, if I look at a figure for the heads, I can look at it and it will be very smooth. Heads, if you would, please square through. Swing through. Boys run. Couples circulate. Wheel and deal. Pass to the centers. Pass through an Alaman left. Smooth for the heads, wasn't it? Watch the sides. Heads square through 4. Swing through. Boys run. Couples circulate. Wheel and deal. Pass to the center. Pass through an Alaman left. Now, for the sides, that figure was couples, boys run, couples circulate, couples trade or wheel and deal, whatever it may be, and they were going into smaller and smaller circles. Yet that is a very common figure for singing calls. What's our responsibility as callers? Not only to correct the flow, but to ensure that the timing is correct. Is it easy to do? No, it's not. Is it worth the effort to do it? Absolutely. When we talk patter, it's hard for some guys to pick up the musical phrase and discipline themselves to do the first beat for the dancer. It is fairly easy for most callers to start the opening figure of a singing call and give the dancers the first beat of phrase, and then they go back into something else. Let's look at this record the way it was written. See if we have a problem with it. Circle left. We didn't break apart in stormy weather. We didn't run aground like others do. Alaman left. Do sa do. Alaman left. Weave the ring. Get smooth sailing. Swing that lady, we'll all promenade. Smooth sailing. And a blue sky full of rainbows from now on. What did the dancers have to do? This is what you can refer to as a 8-beat wait. Why did it happen? Because we... I missed what she said. What was it? Shut up. Thanks, Flo. Now, the point being that what happened was an Alaman left, do-sa-do, Alaman left, and weave. Where do they meet their partner after the weave the ring? Halfway across. Granted, we call the swing and the promenade, but how long does it take them to promenade from halfway? How long do we have to sing? Guess who loses? The dance.
John, there's one other point I'd like to add here. There were 2 faults there.
Yes.
How many noticed the other fault, and it was not John's? Sir. That is not what I was asking for, but that is a little point. The dancers didn't swing, and that's something we have lost. Just once, though.
No, his point is that a swing, if you look at it, for singing calls, used to be defined as twice around.
That's
we
right.
don't do that anymore.
Now, you have to be very careful. This is why I'm bringing this up. If you're planning on having a swing, you better tell them that you've got a good swing here. Let them do it. You did not, at any point there, really lead them into the fact that they were going to swing. In our area, sometimes we swing, sometimes we don't. It depends on how old the dancer is. If you're going to allow that swing, make sure you've done it for the rest of the evening. In this case, I think John was right. The singing was the important thing, and let the dancers sit there? No.
Let me show you how you can easily correct something like that. Yes? Yeah, I'm sorry. Please. Can we come up to get the questions on the microphone, please, because we are being taped. If you don't do it, I will repeat the question, but we would like it if you would. Yes, Flo.
There's another thing that happens when I go out to square dances. Not only do we stand there for 8 beats, but if he takes the first beat of the call of the next phrase, we stand there for 12 beats.
This is why the grand square, the people pre-cue it, but then they sing through it and they forget to pre-cue the next one they're supposed to start on beat 33. And that's why dancers develop bad habits. Yeah, one thing I'll say, in Australia they do a grand slide instead of a grand square, and it generally forces the people to take closer to 32 beats. Yes, please.
One other thing, they didn't swing when they got home either.
Yes, I know.
Did you?
No.
Okay. I mean,
they could have.
At least, yeah.
If they know that I'm going to give them the 8 beats, they will pick up on that.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is that we have a responsibility as callers, and I can do that very easily if I discipline myself to say, my singing is not as important as their enjoyment. Same basic thing, but we'll do it properly timing. Circle up. We didn't break apart in stormy weather. We didn't run aground like others do. Alaman left your corner. They get the first beat. Do-a-do-sa-do. Man the star left inside the square. Turn a pocket by the right and the corner alley man. Swing your lady, we'll all promenade. They got a full 16 beats to promenade now. And the blue sky below right. I gotta give him the first beat music. Heads right or left two. Square through, get 4. Swing through. Boys run, couples circulate. Half tag, scoot back. Boys fold, the girls turn through. Star through and all promenade along. Smooth. What's this skirt skaters nonsense there, Rich? Who got the first beat of the musical phrase? The dancers. How many times do you hear callers on the call side of the record, or when you're out dancing, that lets the dancer move to the first beat? It doesn't happen often enough. It really doesn't. There's another figure I would like to show you, and I just want to show you the difference between them. Many singing calls have the heads and the sides somehow get where they're halfway across the set, and then they have a square through, do-sa-do, 8-chain 4, and swing, right? Think of the action of the dancer who did that left-handed courtesy turn on the 4th beat of the 8-chain 4. Which direction are they turning? They're turning to the left. What direction do they have to go for the swing? Terribly bad body flow. What is a better combination to make that work? 8-chain 5, Alaman left, come back and promenade. It times the same, it meters the same, you skip the do-sa-do, which the dancers don't want to do anyhow. And the other thing that I would like to point out is if you're doing a singing call and the idiot sheet says do-sa-do and promenade, you might as well call a swing because most floors are going to do it anyhow. Call what they're going to dance and they'll say, boy, is he a good caller. He called just what we're dancing. You call a do-sa-do, they're not going to do it today in many cases. Let's take a look at that do-sa-do at 8-chain 4 versus the 8-chain 5 and watch the dancers if you would, please. Heads right or left do. Sides right or left do. Head couples square 2, get 4. Do-sa-do. 8-chain 4. I'm still giving them the first beat. Swing that corner. We'll all promenade. Smooth sailing. Now this figure will do it the other way. Heads right or left to. Back away. Sides right or left to. And the heads square through, get 4. 8-chain 5. Be sure you count to 5. Alaman left. You come back one and swing. Swing that lady. We'll all promenade. Smooth sailing. And the blue sky full of rainbows from now on. Everybody see the difference? Which is smoother? The 8-chain 5. Why don't we change it when we're doing our calls? Why do we do that when we have the recording of just because it's written there? Does that make it written in stone? I don't think so. I think it's incumbent upon us to change it so that they get the first beat. Is that easy? No way. How about giving these guys a great big hand? They did super. When we talk timing, we want to give the dancer the first beat of the musical phrase. Can you always do that? No. Square through from a static square takes how many beats? 10 beats. What's a musical phrase in length of number of beats? Normally it's 8. So I got 2 extra beats of dancing, so what do I have to do? I have to come up with some sort of 6-beat figure that will enable the dancers to get back on the musical phrase. Well, it just so happens that a right and left through from that would do that, or what else? Swing through will do it, won't it? Most of our commands are written in 4, 6, or 8 beat phrases. Unfortunately, there are some which have an odd number of beats. When you do that, you will be making some adjustments in order to come out correctly with the music. We have given you the timing sheets for the mainstream as well as the plus programs, and the timing is a part of the definition. If you have copies of definitions from CALLERLAB, you know that the definition of the figure includes the starting formation, the styling, the timing, and the action. And it is incumbent upon you as a teacher to teach all phases of that. I sometimes teach a lady's chain by saying it takes 4 beats to cross and 4 beats to courtesy turn. For those of you who are young at heart, you can probably get across in less than 8 beats. And for those of you who are athletically inclined, you may be able to make it in 3 beats. But that is a lady's lunge, and we're going to dance a lady's chain and then give them the music and count it for them. That's part of your responsibility as a teacher. And if you teach timing from the day that you first start teaching them how to square dance, then you don't have nearly the problem of class timing, because your command timing doesn't change, the execution timing doesn't change. The only variable then becomes that lead time. When do I physically give that command? And by getting the dancers to move to the music, we are going to have happier dancers and dancers who will continue to call. When dancers perceive the flow to be smooth, when dancers perceive the timing to be correct, they don't have any idea what dance program you're calling. They do not know if you're calling mainstream, plus, or advanced, or anything else. They do not know. They're having a good time moving to music. If your dancers are ragged, if your dancers are rough, change the record to a strongly phrased hoedown. By doing that, it enables you to get back onto the first beat of the musical phrase for the dancer. Can you do that every night on every record? Nope. But I would urge you to try to do at least one tip where you give the dancer the first beat of the musical phrase. And this is particularly important in singing calls. Okay, Martin, over.
What we'd like to do at this time, I fully expect that these guys would be a lot more long-winded than they are. But having covered it as quickly as possible, there must be questions that you have out there before we do any wrap-ups. Bill Peters, please. Use the microphone, Bill.
That's the nicest thing anybody said to me all day. I'd like to know why all this is important. I'm playing devil's advocate. What do we gain by following these principles? What's the value in all of this for us?
Dancer enjoyment. If the dancers are moving to the music, they will tell you it is a better feeling of the dance. And I would ask those 8 who were out there dancing, which felt better, when I gave you the first beat or when you had to dance without regard to the musical phrase? The dancers, when they get the first beat.
Why is dancing to the music important?
Let me ask the group here a question, see if I can get the answer by letting them answer it. How many of you actually dance, square dance? I mean, other than just calling. Okay. I know there are quite a few callers are calling 7 nights a week. They find it very hard to find a place to dance on that 8th night. But the question I have for you, how many have ever gone out to a dance and come home and said, my gosh, I'm tired? How many have ever done that? Be honest now. And how many of you have gone to a dance and said, gee, that evening went so darn fast, I don't know what happened? One dance was so good and why one dance was so tiring? The flow, the timing. When you dance all night long with one foot in the air, you're off balance all night long. And every time you move, you're doing this type of thing going down the floor. And that's the result of not really poor timing, but inaccurate timing is the word I would use. And many of us have that problem of inaccuracy in how we present the call. John did a very, very quick presentation of that. That little split second in there, if you do it, the dance lasts 2.5 minutes. If you would do it mentally and do all your calculations and add up all your seconds and so forth and allow 2 beats for every one, if you do that once in every 8-beat phrase, you've got a lot of off balance during the evening. And that off balance will tire the legs and the backs of the dancers. So the attempt to keep in time with your music is a very necessary thing for the comfort of the dancers. And I think that's what you're getting at, Bill, isn't it? The comfort of the dancer is our responsibility. Good comfort, good flow is a result of good timing.
And when you're actually calling that tip and you're watching that floor move, and you may not be analyzing 1, 2, 3, 4, did I give them the first beat or did I not give them the first beat? But you can feel it, and you can also get a sense of it when you're watching those dancers on the floor. If you see them, as John used the term earlier, lunge, if you see them lunging constantly, and there's a bit of a herky-jerky motion to what's happening on the floor, you know that you're not right on, that those dancers are struggling a little bit. And on the other hand, if you see them just moving a mile a minute out there, and sweat's coming out on the brow, you may have your music too fast, but you also may be stacking your calls and they're just sort of chasing themselves to catch up. But when you just see the dancers just sort of settle down and just moving with the music and the body flow looks and feels right, and if you've got a lot of squares on the floor and you can just hear sort of a swish, swish, swish of the feet, that they're all in unison, that you know you've got it. And you can detect that and you can practice that and you can feel that without actually having to be counting in your head, did I technically get everything right, but you can develop the skills to judge that by watching your floor.
Frank Lane and Marshall Flippo were calling a dance one time, and one of the dancers yawned or something like that, and Frank asked Marshall, he says, does that bother you when that happens? He says, no. He said, what does bother you? When they go like that, he says, that bothers me. He says, because I know that maybe something's wrong. He says, Jesus, it's only 9 o'clock? Or the other time he said, my goodness, is it 10:15 already? That's why we want to do proper timing. If we get the dancers to react to, gee, is it 10:15 already? Is this the last tip? Then we know we've done our job because we've made it enjoyable for them to dance that evening. Probably the biggest abuse of timing in square dancing is that we give the dancer the first beat of the musical phrase in the opener of a singing call, and then we forget all about it. And that's just plain laziness on the part of the caller. It takes discipline. And I think that if you told the dancers, look, I'm going to try this tip, well, at least one tip a night, and I'm going to try to give the timing so that you get the first beat of the musical phrase, and tell me how I did it. And then you work on it very hard. You'll find that your dancers are going to enjoy it, and you're going to find that you enjoy the calling a lot more, because you'll be more aware of your music, and you can do things with music that you otherwise can't do than if you just use a record that is what I would call a workshop record. There's some awfully good music out there. There's some trash out there, too, but there's a lot of good music out there, and if you let the dancers listen to that music and you program your dance through that music, you can get them to do an awful lot of things. Once they're moving to the beat of the music, once they've got that idea, that 8-beat musical phrase, you can call things they don't even know they're able to dance. There are people who've been at this game a long time, Frank Lane, Bill Peters, a number of others. When they're dancing to the music, they get through things that otherwise you can't dance. He said, my people couldn't dance that, but he got them through it because they were moving to the beat of the music. And when you're doing a workshop, if you can get them to move to that music, you can do all kinds of things because the body is moving in the right direction. The body positioning is there. The body flow is there. The space available for dancing is there. The proper tempo and the proper timing. All of those things provide for a smooth dancing environment. And there's a session coming on later on dealing with degree of difficulty or controlling difficulty. I think it's Sabalski and Jacobs and Garvey. I'm not quite sure who's doing it. But if you have an opportunity and there's nothing else that strikes you as being more interesting, go to those sessions. Because we sometimes overload the dancers with a lot of difficulty that we think we enjoy, and maybe they don't enjoy quite as much. We've made them break down. We made them work too hard. The question is, what do you do if the floor is very slick? First thing you do is you teach them how to put their toes through the soles of their feet so they can grab onto the floor. Because you're dancing there and you're very, very concerned about that. You may want to slow the tempo down, but perhaps most importantly, you'll tell the dancers, keep your square small and take small steps.
Tell them to grow long toenails.
Beg pardon?
Tell them to grow long toenails after
right.
they get their foot through the shoes.
Yes. Frank?
I say yea verily to everything you've said, but I think we're missing one of the real important things. What does especially the young inexperienced caller do about the fact that the most important figure in all of our programs for really dancing to the phrase of the music, of course, is Grand Square. 8 out of every 10 records that they buy, and a young caller will try to emulate the fellow on the call's side.
Yep.
The Grand Square is called incorrectly, not giving the dancer the first beat of the phrase.
Yep.
Could you approach that problem?
When do we give the command Grand Square? In the first place, what is the command timing for Grand Square? Sides, face, Grand Square. Sides, face, Grand Square. That means that we have to give that command on beats 5, 6, 7, and 8 so that they hit the first beat of the musical phrase. What happens if we don't give the command correctly? Sides, face, Grand Square. Was it right? No. Let's try it this way and see if it's right or too early. Sides, face, Grand Square. Did I miss that again? By golly, we got to figure out exactly where to put that sucker, don't we? So let's count the musical phrase. Think about it. Sides, face, Grand Square. 1, 2, 3. I rushed that, didn't I? Because I didn't pick it up on 5. I gave it on 6, 7, and 8. I gave it in 3. We have to know our music in order to do that. And I don't care what the singing call is. It really doesn't make any difference. Whether it's got a Grand Square figure written to it or not, you've got to know your introduction. You've got to be able to say sides, face, Grand Square. Sides, face, Grand Square. Go 1, 2. And they get the first beat of the music. Now, when they finish that, where are they going to be? They'll be at home with 32 beats. We have to pre-cue the next figure, don't we? What? Old lady's chain. They get the first beat. Chain them back. They get the first beat. Promenader 2. Can I get my square back up here for a moment? There's one other thing I want to show.
Why that square is getting up there is something that Frank touched on, John touched on, but I just wanted to repeat it again. There are two things to me in terms of calling that Grand Square correctly. One is knowing where to put it, but two is using the judgment to know that, change the words to the record so you don't need to give it in the improper place just so you can get the words of the song in. Sacrifice the words of the song in favor of calling the Grand Square correctly.
A figure which is sometimes used in singing calls is the Alamo-style ring, right? What do you hear? You hear swing through, swing through. What's the next thing they say? Really? Girls, turn back and step to an Alamo ring, if you would, please. If I do a turn through from here, which is where I am at the completion of my second swing through, where are they going to be? Don't forget to drop hands and step forward, people. That's where they would be if we did a turn through. Let me explain, to quote one of the well-known traveling callers formerly and accredited caller coach, those short naps are marvelous. Bill Peters, you may be credited for that one, but then you may not. Okay. Yes, you were taking a nap at the time, sir. That's all right. Okay, let's see if we can show you how you can meter it the same, but it dances differently. Allemande left to the Alamo style, and then you're gonna balance, swing through, you balance there, swing through a set, and then turn the partner right. Allemande left with the corner girl, and weave a little goodbye, my lady love. Farewell, my turtle love. Swing your lady there. Promenade the square is set. What happened there? I did a turn by the right, didn't I? And it danced a lot better. Can you do that to singing call to understand the difference of where you have to give the call and what it is that you have to give? It's very important that we not do something stupid like swing through, turn through. Even if it's on the call side of the record, and even if that caller is a famous celebrity, or even if that caller is the owner of the label, I don't care. It's wrong. Correct it. You don't think I should hold back? Is that it, Bill? Okay.
Question in the back.
Yes, Flo, please at the mic. I think, did you have a question first here? Yeah, go ahead.
This is more to do with the pattern, especially when you've just towed a call and sort of half the floor can go through nicely and half the floor is saying, no, you don't do an arm turn on a fan the top. And so half the floor is moving at reasonable speed, another half is still debating or something. What do you do?
If you have established proper body flow, you will get them through. Fan the top is a good example of a call which we don't use as callers perhaps as often as we should. What combination of calls will almost ensure 100% success for you if you're going to do fan the top? No, boxing that's not one of them. The reason being, let me show you why. Heads, if you would, please pair off. Swing through. Frequently when we call box the nat, do the box and that, if you would, please. We're not playing Mother May I. The dancers aren't always straight in front of one another. They're at the angle. They really are. Now, in this case, these are all good dancers, and they would be able to do a fan the top. Unbox the net. I thought that would get them.
You got to drop hands as well.
Okay. Boys run around the girls. And Ferris wheel. Now the center's passed through. Touch a quarter. If I want to do a fan the top, I would do it from this sort of setup. Scoot back, and I've changed from the voice facing in to the voice facing out. And when I call my single hinge, the girls come together with which hand? The hand that they have to use for fan the top. There's no decision to be made. The body flow is there. Single hinge, fan the top. It's a 100% winner. Don't forget to move up there, sir. 98.5.
That wasn't bad, John. You only had one element off time.
Okay. Now, the point being that if you set it up for dancer success, and by teaching it that way, you're going to be able to get them all moving together to the music. If they're not moving to music, first you got to get them dancing. You really do.
But the question is, what happens if part of the people are slower and some part of the people are faster? That was just an example.
Okay, you call correctly, and they'll catch up to you. If you wait for the slowest dancer in the class, the other people are going to be walking out the door because they said, we're not going to put up with that. They will come up to your tempo. I think Flo is next, and then we'll get you, sir. Flo, come on up here. Dancers, you may drop the hand before all the blood runs out. Let's see, pass through and wheel and deal, if you would. Zoom. Pass through and Allemande left and unpromenade. Hey, some people drink cola, some people drink 7-Up. Yes, Flo.
When you talk about the Alamo, is what
yes.
couples were dancing. You started the command on 1 and 2, Allemande left. Why did you do that? I know the answer, but I want you to explain it to them.
I started command on 1 and 2?
Yes, you did.
Okay. What do you think the answer is? Tell us, everybody.
Well, it comes from the old-fashioned Alamo style, which was a grand right and left interrupted with balances. And the Alamo and left, in order to put them on the one on the balance, it takes 6 steps. So that they use the 6 steps, and then when they do the balance, they hit the 1 beat.
Okay.
But you did it automatically. I think it comes from maybe the old-fashioned way of doing Alamo and left in the Alamo style. Give it right to your partner and balance there.
Yeah. Let me just see if I can do it with a pattern. I can see it. Circle left. Take it to first beat. Alamo and left in the Alamo style. Right to the partner. Balance there. Swing 2.
Balancing on the 7 and 8.
Balance. Swing 2, about 2, turn the partner right. Alamo and left. Promenade, a short walk, long walk, you miss it. I told you it was short. Okay, she's probably right. Okay,
Yeah.
A lot of times we'll do that, but we'll try to get them back onto the musical phrase. Are you going to hit it every time? No, nobody is going to hit it every time. Now, if you have all 8-beat commands, and if you have pre-written all your choreography and you don't deviate ever, and you don't do any command that takes anything other than 8 beats, you may always stick to the 8-beat musical phrase. But if you're going to do a square through from a static square, if you're going to do a right and left through from an 8-chain through, you're going to make some adjustments, and you won't be on the musical phrase every time.
But in the case that you just did, when you got back to the final promenade, they had that promenade on 1.
Sure. Yes, sir.
I'd like to question your Alamo ring that you're talking about doing a turn through.
Yes.
And I feel that after you're doing a swing through, that you're walking for a turn through, that you can go back. And not necessarily from your balance, from your Alamo style and a balance.
Let's watch the dancers and see where they are when we call the turn through.
On the second time that you call your swing through, from an Alamo style, all right, the second time you call it, they are in a right and left grand direction. Check it.
I think you'll find, sir, but let's watch the dancers and let's see where they end up. But it's quite possible that in your mind's eye they're in that position, but if they finish, it's like a star through veer left. If the girls indeed finish the star through and veer left, it's a lunge and recover, Freddie notwithstanding. The point being that it is, if star through veer left is good, star through veer right would be equally good, and they won't put up with it. Sure, we'll let you take his place. Yeah, see, that's what happens when you fall asleep there. You don't move up and they're right. All right. Let's watch the dancers here. Alamo and left in the Alamo style. Balance. Swing 2, to-by 2. You balance there. Swing 2, get to-by 2. And turn through. You haven't finished your swing through. I've given the command before you finish the swing through. The swing through ends at the time you're back in the Alamo ring.
You know, what that required was an adjustment to end up in that position rather than finishing the move. Finishing the swing through will leave you in another Alamo ring.
Yeah, but he's saying, why didn't I not call turn through? Because I said it should be turned by the right. Okay, what I'm saying, Skip, is that the correct call is turn by the right. If you do a turn through, he didn't finish it because he wanted to prove his point of where I do the turn through from. But if I finish my swing through, I don't finish it until I come back with that other dancer, and I'm facing in, and the girls are facing out. That's the completion of your second swing through. That's the reason for it, Irv.
That's what we call dancer anticipation of the call. If you're anticipating a turn through, you will adjust for it. If the caller does a turn through and wants it a legitimate turn through, he will finish the Alamo ring, will do the turn through, and you will have the boys facing out, the girls in a mini circle in the center. Then you better be careful what you want. If you want that turn through, make sure you're in the position to do a proper turn through.
Having said that, if you called an Alamo ring and called a turn through, 95+% of the dance floor would go to their corner. Because they said, that's what that dumb guy wanted, even if it's not what he called.
Because they have been programmed to do it.
Every once in a while, when Frank Lane hears people call, and I hear him say, turn by the right.
If I may, just before we get carried away too far, I want to ask John a question. Do you have your favorite bad flow figure in your briefcase, or can you remember it, John?
He's danced it before. That is one of the handouts that Darrell Clendenin is going to do at another session. If you look at that, and there is a figure on the back of the sheet that says my favorite bad call. It has some impossible stuff in there. It's got such lovely things as dive through, flutter wheel. It's got square through 3 to a right and left through. And it has some other things there that just are...
Centers out and cast off 3/4.
The couple circulate, couple straight, couple circulate, couple straight. I mean, there's just some bad stuff. The other thing is, you know, if we look at this, heads if you would please, again, pair off, star through, right and left through, and the ladies lead Dixie style to a wave. If I call a Dixie style to the wave, what is the action that the boys expect to do at that point? They want to trade. But the caller says, geez, I don't want him to trade. I want him to do a left swing through. If I do a left swing through following this, what happens? The boys start to go the other way because that's where their bodies want to go. Now, if you want them to do that left swing through, boys trade twice left swing through, and you got a good chance of getting away with it. Now, the girls trade, and the girls run, and Ferris wheel, zoom, and pass through an Alaman left, and they got an 8-beat promenade home. The point I'm trying to get at is we have to understand the body flow in order to give proper timing and get the whole entire dance experience work well. Yes, sir.
Getting back to your turn through from the Alamo style.
Yes.
All of us in this room have heard this speech. The others haven't. You're teaching like you say we should teach.
I'm preaching to the choir. Is that what your point is?
Right.
Guilty.
And these other guys come to my dancers, and I've taught them that that is improper, and that caller says swing through and turn through from the Alamo style. My dancers don't know what the heck's going on.
Wouldn't it be great if we could train our dancers so that when some caller does a stupid call like swing through, turn through, and all the boys end up out here, and he says Alaman left, and the guy says, with whom? With whom? Wouldn't that be great? Who's going to be embarrassed? Not you for teaching properly. It's that turkey that calls incorrectly that should be blamed. But unfortunately, dancers don't do that. We had a great time. Boy, he stopped us with a lot of stuff. And we applaud wildly.
Right.
Hogwash.
But we have too many dancers been dancing that too many years.
That doesn't make it right.
True.
I see no reason for us to accept mediocrity as a way of life. Yeah. But, you know, your point is valid.
Yeah, and the last thing on that turn through, if I could, what John just said, one reason why that turn through in that Alamo ring, quote unquote, works is because an awful lot of callers don't pay attention to what the definition of turn through is, and that's what John is pointing out, whether the Alaman left there. But everybody uses turn through Alaman left, turn through Alaman left, turn through Alaman left. So what are we doing? We're teaching the dancers how to make that adjustment, so therefore it works. If we use turn through legitimately, so that they didn't have to adjust to some other formation, then turn through in the Alamo ring would not work.
Not only that, as long as you've got record producers that are allowing the figure to go onto their records, you new callers that use the figures off of it, or any caller that always uses the figure off the record, is going to be perpetuating the habit too.
Yes, sir.
I think it was very close to my question, but basically there are a number of things, such as the turn through Alaman left, the star through veer left, that I don't like. But I know that my dancers are going to go out after class and dance to other callers. And I don't know if you have any other suggestions you can make as to how we can prepare our dancers to do that, other than sometimes I'll say that this is a figure that you're going to see, and it may not be comfortable, but I'm going to call it so you see it every once in a while. But do you have any other suggestions?
You sometimes have to teach them defensive dancing, but you're absolutely right. Dancers will try to make the caller look good. And if the caller makes... Can we shut those doors back there, please? Because those people are awful noisy out there. The dancers try to make the caller look good. Because the caller has called incorrectly doesn't make it right. Star through, veer left is a classic case. Again, it's a lunge and recover, but if the timing is given correctly, star through, veer left is acceptable. Because it's just and back. Frank.
The thing we're talking about here with the turn through, and it also reverts back to my thing about Grand Square a while ago. If you call Alamo style swing through, turn through long enough, the dancers, they're going to do it, as Don just pointed out. But what are you doing? You're teaching them to misunderstand the definition of turn through. Then when you call a figure that really requires a turn through, they no longer know how to do a turn through. They think it's a right hand swing to some till before the next call is delivered. Now, the same way with grand squares we were talking about when John showed you how to deliver grand squares. If you deliver it as he did in the first 3 presentations there, way too soon, too late, and then clip to the last 3 beats, if you do this, the dancers are going to learn to do grand squares completely ignoring the musical phrase. I think they're born with an innate desire to dance to the musical phrase, and I think we destroy that desire by calling grand squares off phrase. You say my dancers do grand squares in 26 beats. Well, then probably, just probably, you're delivering the grand square command incorrectly. I think they would love to do it in 32 beats if you would let them dance to that musical phrase.
Let me tell you how innate rhythm is to people. Freddie and I were in the military for a number of years, and during the course of that, there are a number of military wives who get pregnant. And during the course of the military, there are parades. And when that military band is playing at the parade, little babies inside keep in rhythm with the beat of that band. I'll guarantee it. That is inherent before they are born. And some of the wives who were far along said, "Don't take me to another damn parade. I can't stand that kicking." That's how naturally inbred it really is. Let me show you another case of a call which I think Darrell Clendenin wrote on a Chinook record. Heads, if you would, do a right and left through. Roll away. Square through 4. Try to do it correctly. Do-sa-do to a wave. And the setters trade. Now, just the boys scoot back while the girls trade with each other. Unusual call to an Alaman left and come back and promenade. Square your sets. But just the boys scooting back because they indeed are in the formation that allows them to scoot back, and then the girls do something else. Nice little figure if you use that as a corner swing to use with a singing call. It was originally written on a Chinook for the old lamplighter. Great figure. But you better give the command time early, the lead time, because the dance action is unusual.
And you better have the made a habit of calling boys scoot back when you don't mean it.
That's right. You know, so often we say boys scoot back when we mean to scoot back, the boys go in. But I hear callers sometimes saying scoot back or boys scoot back, and I want to watch the girls just stay there and wait sometime. Surprise! Surprise! Okay, other questions. Deco, you had a comment.
Yeah, John, I think I'd like to bring us back to this phrasing timing thing a little bit. We've gone off into figures. If you'd look, and on this little sheet that is apparently bears my name, on the third paragraph, there's a typo on that I did not anticipate happening because I'd forgotten last year about it. It says between the parens, lay down the down up, cut out that first lay down in your sheet so that you can understand what we're trying to say, and then I'll make my point. It says between the asterisk, cut out lay down. Between the asterisk, the down upbeat sequence known as bars, you see? And I missed that last year, and I see we've missed it again this year. Okay, because that brings me to this anchor beat thing. I'd like to point out something that these fellows are doing that has not been covered yet, and I'd like to, John or Larry, any of you, to emphasize it again. We have 4 places where we can put that command in to get our timing that they're talking about, and that's between those anchor beats. But the problem for most of the callers whom I have tried to work in seminars is that I have difficulty getting them to count their timing to understand what that timing sequence is that they got to swing through. Well, how do I know when it's 4 beats? Because the caller himself is slopping across the first beat and taking a lot of it, so he doesn't know where to start. These gentlemen, no matter what they were calling, their command ceased. And if you listen, it's as important to shut up as it is to talk. Their command ceased before that next upbeat hit. That's what put the dancer's foot on the floor. They always quit before that beat hit. And if you'll think about it, or if you have a tape on or something, John, emphasize that again. There's a way you can say, Alaman left. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can find it yourself. But if you slop across that first beat and don't do like these gentlemen are doing, you can't find how to really time properly, okay?
Yep. There's a couple of singing calls that almost demand that you give the dancers the first beat of the phrase. Listen to this one, which has a figure of four ladies chain as its opening figure. Four ladies chain, go. You roll away. Ladies roll away. They move in a circle. Get moving. Out of Atlanta. We that land. Did you ever know that you're my hero? Swing that lady and we'll all promenade. I'll fly higher than an eagle, 'cause you're the wind beneath my wings. Heads right or left, boom. You have to discipline yourself. You have to discipline yourself to shut up when the dance says they need to command. Forget the lyrics. Bill.
It used to be that we never found it necessary to compromise timing. It is my perception that these days, with the kind of choreography most of us are calling these days, it is occasionally necessary. Underlined occasionally. Every time we ask the dancer, do you see your diamond? Do you see your square? Do you see your hourglass or whatever? That compromises timing. Would you comment on that, please?
You bet. When you compromise timing to the point of check a diamond, check a wave, check an hourglass, whatever it happens to be, if that command interferes with the dancer's timing, you have automatically created stop and go. The reason that habitual words get callers into trouble, how many times do you hear a caller say, step to a wave, swing through? The definition of swing through says, if not already in a wave, step to the wave. The step to the wave will automatically, unless your lead time is well in advance, the step to a wave will induce you to give stop and go timing. Swing through. Without a stop, spin the top. Almost guaranteed it will cause them to come to a stop because we've let the words interfere. Try it. Listen. It happens. All habits must be eliminated.
Can I add one to that?
Yes.
There are many callers today are saying not step to a wave, but touch to a wave. You'd be surprising in caller schools how many of the newer callers are coming up and saying touch to a wave. You do that with people who know touch a quarter, you're going to have a shambles on the floor because all they hear is the word touch and they turn a quarter.
When we do caller schools, a lot of times we'll say, we will not allow you to say step to a wave. Now the caller that's been calling a little while says step to a wave, swing through. He knows I'm looking over his shoulder. He says step to a wave. And he sees me coming out. He says, ladies trade. And I said, you got away with it that time, didn't you? That happens, guys. And if that happens at a clinic or a caller's school, that's great because it says, I'm aware of it, but old habits die hard.
Larry was just saying it took you 2 months to kill it in him.
Yeah, well, Larry went through a school one time, and I won't say he had a set pilot square. But Bill Peters and Kathy were number 1 couple. Freddie and I were number 4 couple, and Jim and Joanne Mayo were number 2 couple. I won't see he had a stacked square, but boy, if he screwed up the timing or he lost his corner, he was in deep doo, I got to tell you right now. He did just fine. He called a square through 3 to a right and left through, and I said, we will not call a right and left through after a square through 3.
Do we have another question?
Yes.
Do we have time?
Sure.
I got 3. I've been keeping, well...
If there's no one else behind you, you get to ask all 3 of them.
Well, you can answer this
Give
quick.
all 3 of them, please. All 3
now,
questions.
with timing, I was looking at my list here. Diamond circulate takes 3 beats. So, and flip the diamond takes 3 beats. So if I call diamond circulate, and flip the diamond like that, I've used 9 beats. What am I going to do with them other 3? I just want to keep my timing going is all.
Is that your question?
Yeah.
Center straight. Centers run. Couple circulate.
How many?
And during that couple circulate, they will adjust into the proper formation and pick up the timing. You know, it's like calling. If you think about this for a moment, if you call something, tag the line to the left, and you're a little bit late with the next call, where are the dancers actually, unless they make an adjustment? They're offset two-faced lines, aren't they? Because they pass right shoulders, they turn to the left, but the other center hand is behind them. So you want to follow a tag the line left with either a Ferris wheel or a couple circulate, and they'll make the adjustment at the next one.
Right.
What's your second question?
I'm not sure if that diamond thing is clarified yet, but earlier when you were talking on timing, and I just want to clarify where you were coming from. That you were talking kind of like on teaching beginners and that sort of thing, and you're more concerned about teaching them the moves and getting them doing the moves first, and then worrying about timing down the road 4 weeks.
Not so much worrying about down the road, but realizing that as you've got people learning at different rates, and you've got some folks that got it like that, and some folks that don't, and you call it, half the floor gets through it right away early on in the teach, and half the floor isn't quite there. There's going to be some sacrifices made for success of them getting a chance to see it before you can really just smooth them down to where everybody now knows the move. Now you can start getting them to the kind of the beat of the music. So I'm just saying that in that learning situation, you're going towards giving them the execution time they need and not giving them a lot of extra. But in reality, there's a fair amount of extra time early on in the teach, and you want to eliminate that as quickly as you can. But it requires the dancers are comfortable that they know the definition of the move before they can get through it on time.
A lot of time should be spent in your first stages of teaching dancers and teaching them to move to the music, that they take one step to each beat of your music so that they're shuffling along at a constant rate. If you spend that time early in the training session of dancers to get them to move to the music, it will help them with their timing while they're dancing. When you teach square through, and the first time you count it out as 10, and make them walk to it in 10 beats once you've got the figure straightened away in their mind. And that's the important part, to get the pattern, then the timing, and then when you start them dancing, it's not so much the timing of the movement itself that you're slowing down. You're not doing that. If they're moving to the music, you're allowing a space of recovery for the person in the square that maybe has a hearing fault, or maybe has a bum leg, or maybe just didn't react in time. And for a little bit of time, that reaction time is what kills it. And then gradually they will start to dance in time to the music. If they are dancing in time to the music, then you take out that wait time. It's the wait time you're allowing for recovery.
Yeah, and that wait time at times can be, you can substitute a do-si-do or a forward and back, or an honest move into the music that serves the purpose of wait time without just
You're saying give them a recovery movement. You have one more question, and then I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap up real quick.
And that's what I was trying to clear up, because to me, what I want to see more in square dancing today, and I try to do it in my classes, is I think we need more dancing in square dancing.
Put the dancing
not executing
back
moves,
in square
but
dancing.
Exactly, and that's part of. So my first minute of my lessons is making people go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
We're
and
supposed to pack up at 3. I'm sorry.
On the grand square, I know what you're saying, starting at the right time, but we have a problem with grand square once they've learned it, and they go into a 24-beat grand square. And for timing on that, I don't know if this will help you or not. I got 2 ways. Number one, instead of saying grand square on beat 5, 6, 7, and 8, okay? Wait another 8 beats and say it then, and only give them 24 beats.
Why?
No.
Why? Let me tell you.
Just kidding.
Let me tell you what I do. You can accept it or not accept it, but I tell them if they wish to dance grand square in less than 32 beats, wait for me, I'll be along. The other thing I said is if you start your reverse before you should, I have been known to change the call.
Yeah.
And you put a 4-ladies chain in the middle, over and back. Now the head space and finish your grand square. You will make believers of them, and they will dance to the music.
One thing I've done to add dance to grand square, if this helps any, is I've challenged my dancers to clap on the corner.
We teach them
4. 1, 2, 3.
Step heavily on
they
the
give them
corner.
something to do on that corner, they'll go 32.
Or a 1, 2, and a cha-cha-cha. A 1, 2, and a cha-cha-cha.
Yeah.
Any number of ways that will work to get them dancing to music.
How about a hand for our presenters here? If you did not get the handouts, they're here. We would like to have you pick them up. Work with them.
Do we have extra?